Parks, schools, restaurants, and more, Assembly Row gets high scores. We're a thriving city with so much to do. On Boston Harbor, in our view. Politics, cannabis, controversial stories, heroes, villains, who gets the glory? 50 plus languages in Somerville is spoken. Sanctuary city, there are no free tokens. History in Somerville stays alive. In All American City, we won 3 times. Somerville connects. Somerville connects. Welcome to another edition of Dead Air Live, the longest live-running TV show in America and audio podcast, Somerville Connects. Today, we have a very, very interesting gentleman. His name is Brig Serman. He is from Advanced Integrated Marketing. He is president and CEO of Digital Marketing Agency. Welcome, Brig. How are you in this fantastic day?
Hey, thanks, JoJo. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your audience. We're having just a fantastic day. You know, we're coming up on the holiday season, the end of the year, a lot of things to celebrate. Even in such a challenging year, we're trying our best to focus on the positives.
So, Brig, I met you online in Zoom in a BNI speed networking, which is, I guess it's like speed dating, but only it's for business. It's for business.
Exactly speed. Well, I shouldn't say exactly because I've never done speed dating. Been married almost 31 years now.
Yeah. And neither have I. I only know about it through friends that said to me, oh, you meet in person and it's like a few minutes. And I said, that's weird. Yeah. But anyway, here we are. And I was fascinated talking to you. First off, you have the Beatles behind you, Abbey Road, which is fabulous. We all love that scene. And when you grew up with the Beatles, you know exactly that's one of the most iconic scenes in Beatle history is them walking across. That was Abbey Road, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And a little piece of trivia for you. That is what they call a zebra crosswalk in England. Zebra stripe, obviously, because it's alternating black and white. Well, the traffic laws in the UK, as soon as a pedestrian steps into that zebra crosswalk, all traffic must come to a complete halt. Well, it's an iconic photo of an iconic band, iconic album that happens to be the zebra crosswalk directly outside of the Abbey Road studios, used to be EMI studios. So you can imagine, myself included, guilty as charged, traveling to London saying, I'm going to go get my picture taken on the crosswalk. Well, every cab driver in London avoids that intersection because there's no way they can get through that street because people are lined up down the block to take their turn crossing the street to get their picture taken. So it's quite funny, but the locals know to avoid it.
So, Brig, when we were doing one-to-one, not one-to-one, but our speed networking, you told me that your digital marketing agency is the only company in the industry to guarantee front page in 90 days.
That's true.
That sounds like a very tall order.
It is a very tall order. Yeah.
So Brig, I want you to take us on a little journey. Tell us about your company and how you established this, because to say that you're the only company in the industry, it's pretty amazing. So take it away, Brig.
Yeah, to say you're the only company that does whatever is pretty, a pretty tall order, whatever that may be, right? But let me kind of take a step back and talk about digital marketing and what it is that our team does. So, a typical digital marketing agency, it's all about managing your presence online and helping better reach your target audience through digital means, whether that's your website, whether that's social media, advertising, you name it, right? So, like any digital marketing agency, there's some basic things, kind of core, services that we offer, everything from website design and development. We'll do social media advertising. We'll do pay-per-click advertising, reputation management. But our flagship offering is what we call search engine optimization, or SEO for short. Now, without getting into the weeds on the technical aspect of what, really takes place in search engine optimization, the objective there is for us to help companies tell their story. So, if they're effectively telling their story, it gives them a much, much better shot at getting in front of the people that they're trying to reach. And most importantly, when those people are looking for what it is they offer, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether it's an online engagement, an offline engagement. Think of a plumber as an example. So that plumber, typically they're getting emergency repair calls more often than not. I mean, I think that, I'm sure there's a statistic out there, but just in plumbers that I work with, 75 to 80% of the calls that they get are for, homeowners that they need them right now. I mean, there's a leak, there's, a blockage, there's some kind of a problem that needs to be addressed immediately. Well, if you're that plumber, you got really two choices in terms of getting in front of that potential caller that's looking for what you do at the moment they need you. One choice is you could advertise, okay? And you could use what's called pay-per-click advertising, which is a process where through the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, or Bing, you purchase a listing in search results. So if you're in Google, and we've got an example that we'll show you here while we're talking. If you're in Google and you're performing a search for something like, emergency plumber near me or emergency plumber in your city, the first three listings that come up in Google are advertisements. Every time somebody clicks on that ad to go to that business's website, Google hits the cash register. It's a little cha-ching. That's pay per click. So every time somebody clicks that ad, the business who has listed that ad is paying an incremental amount of money for that click through to their website.
And how much are the businesses paying Google for
Great
this?
question. It's a great question. Well, honestly, it depends. If you're a plumber, depends on if you're a plumber in New York City, it's probably going to be a little bit more competitive than if you're a plumber in, Altoona, Pennsylvania, a smaller town, right? So that level of competition can definitely have an impact on the cost per click. It's not uncommon to see uh, click cost or cost per click in the services industry or the trades that are, $5 to $10 every time somebody clicks it. Now, a more extreme example is if you happen to be a lawyer and you're focusing on DUI or DWI defense, and you want to be found by people that, they're Sunday morning, they're standing out in front of the police station because they just spent Saturday night in jail. They're scrolling through their phone looking for the first lawyer they can find. Oftentimes, DUI lawyers are spending hundreds of dollars every time somebody clicks their ad. Now, if you take all this together, it really helps to understand how Google operates. I mean, Google has YouTube, they've got Gmail, they've got Google Docs, all these different services that, are quote unquote free. Well, the way they're able to offer those is because they make over $100 billion a year in pay-per-click advertising. It's a staggering amount of money. It's a staggering amount of money.
That
So
that is that's insane.
yeah, it really is.
Wow.
I mean, I honestly I wish I had thought of it 20 years ago. And, would have been on that side of the equation. But it's I mean, there's actually a lot of stuff happening in the media, in the press lately about antitrust lawsuits, states suing them for for various whatever various alleged offenses. So it's an interesting time. We'll see how that will play out. But the business that is using pay-per-click advertising is sort of forced to do it. They're forced to purchase traffic to their website because their website isn't earning it. And we're all about helping the website earn that placement. Now, when you look at a pay-per-click ad, not only is it very expensive and it adds up quickly, Google forces that company to set what's called a daily budget. So, for example, if you want to spend no more than $50 a day on advertising, well, that's $1,500 a month on average. So that can be quite a lot of money for a small, mom and pop plumber, or, smaller businesses. Well, every day you've got a budget of $50. Well, if your pay per click cost on your ad is $10, that's 5 visitors to your website. What do you think happens after that fifth visitor clicks on your ad and you've hit your $50 budget? Your ad disappears until the next business day. So if you're trying to be found for any sort of emergency service or whatever, the toilet's not going to back up during business hours, right? Or your water heater is not going to go cold or start leaking only before noon, right? When your ad is showing. I mean, in my experience, it always seems to happen late at night, when it's the least convenient time.
If you don't
So
mind me saying, isn't that unethical that your ad disappears?
no, no, no. It's actually it's the sort of the opposite, because if you set a daily budget, then as the business owner, you've got a fixed cost for your advertising that you know how much you're spending, and you can put a limit on that. When Google first started with pay-per-click advertising, they didn't have that daily limit. And there's a story that we like to tell about a young couple that created an online business to sell college sweatshirts, pennants, stuff like that. Well, they didn't have a daily budget. Well, 3 weeks in, they get a $27,000 charge from Google for advertising. Well, they haven't sold $27,000 worth of merchandise, let alone made enough profit to cover that bill. That's because they were getting a massive amount of click-throughs to their website, and it was, continuing to pile up the charges to a level that they couldn't afford. So the fact that Google is now putting in a daily limit or a daily budget is actually a benefit for a small business, so they can
Oh, I see. So the small businesses can afford to stay in business and not go
exactly,
out of business.
exactly. But the in exchange for that, your ad's got a clock on it, right? However many people click to hit your budget, then it disappears. So that's one, kind of negative about pay per click. Another is 90% of the public will never click on an ad. They've recognized that they're not at the top of the list because they're the best answer for the question that's being asked. They're at the top of the list because they paid to be there. So the consumers are very savvy, and they've recognized that. What's really interesting is when you break that down between gender and education levels, women with any amount of higher education, whether they get degrees or not, at best are going to click on those ads maybe 1 to 2% of the time. So if that's your audience you're trying to reach, then that's a real poor investment because you're not going to reach them. Interestingly enough, when you talk about service and repair, especially emergency services, 75% of the calls that are going to plumbers, to HVAC, electricians, roofers, 75% of those calls come from women. Well, I didn't know that when I came across that statistic, I was a little bit surprised, but then I thought about it. And, in our house, I'll try to fix something myself. And after about an hour, hour and a half, my wife looks at the mess that I've made and says, yeah, we need a professional. So she picks up the phone and calls that service provider. And that's pretty consistent. So if that's your audience, you're missing the mark. So our job is to help tell that story so that you're showing up right below those ads. And that's what's called the organic section. And getting on the front page is critical because 75% of the public will never go to page 2. They're more inclined to change the question they're asking because if they get to the bottom and they don't find what they're looking for, oh, I must have asked the wrong question. They do that before they would ever go to page 2.
And this is why your business is so instrumental because people don't get to page 2 because you're going to make sure that your customers stay on page 1, which is where all the business will happen, correct?
Exactly. That's where all the business happens. So, when you look at sort of the buyer's journey these days, we used to say that 70% of a buyer's journey occurred online, meaning that they did research, They educated themselves long before they ever talked to a provider of the service or the product. Well, it's actually moved up to 93%. So 93% of all purchase transactions start with an online search, whether it's an online purchase or an offline sort of physical in person transaction. 93% start with an online search. Now, what's really interesting is um, about two-thirds of those searches are done on a smartphone.
You know what? I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. I'm in Home Depot and someone's talking to me about something or Best Buy. The first thing I do is I go in my phone. I start searching.
You search for what you're looking for, absolutely. So it is super important that not only can you be found on the front page of search results, but that your website renders properly on a smartphone, that it's fast. I mean, that experience the user has is critically important. And it's one of the things that Google will check and factor into where it ranks you in search results. If you've got a poor user experience, you're going to be at the back of the bus. So, recognizing that the trend has moved heavily towards online search from a buyer's journey standpoint and to, mobile devices as really the dominant, vehicle through which people are searching. I mean, that computer, it's now a smartphone. So again, these are the reasons why it is so important for a business to show up on the front page. The last sort of statistic that I'll share with you is the importance of it being local. So people have a tendency to want to shop local. If it's a local car dealer, or if it's the local roofing company or electrician, or I want to find a dentist near me. So 72% of consumers that do a search are willing to travel up to 5 miles from their current location to go visit that store or that service provider. So there's that 5 mile radius that you're marketing to. 72% of the people doing those searches are going to travel that far, or up to that amount, in order to reach you. So being found locally is super important. So how do we do this? So you mentioned earlier that our company, we're the only ones that can guarantee front page placement. So we do that because we've got a very rigorous approach to search engine optimization. We focus on two main areas. The first is we focus on what's called technical SEO, or the technical search engine optimization. So what is that? Well, Google, and we focus on Google because 75% of all searches are done on Google, right? And it's the dominant search engine. They've got the most stringent search requirements and criteria. So if you're successful meeting their criteria, you're going to do great on all of the search engines. So we focus on Google. Well, they use over 200 technical criteria in their search algorithm to determine if a website is meeting their requirements. And if it scores poorly, then it gets a very low ranking. It ends up penalizing the website, so it doesn't show up positively in search results. So we'll come in and we'll address the technical issues, right? So we'll make sure that the website is meeting 100% of that criteria, and then we continue to monitor it and continue to make updates to the technical aspect of the site every month, because Google will often change factors in their algorithm every 90 days.
Why?
Because they make $100 billion a year from the people that don't know how to do SEO and are forced to use pay-per-click advertising to get in front of their audience. So it is absolutely in Google's best interest that the typical small business owner does not know how to do this.
How did you become involved with doing this? How long have you been doing it? And do you have a big team?
Well, a bunch of questions there. So, actually, if I can, would you mind let me hit one other aspect of how we arrive
Please.
at our guarantee, and then I'll come back and address
Sure.
that. So we start with the technical SEO, which I mentioned. The second thing we do is what's called content. So, and you may have heard the phrase landing pages. So think of a landing page as a billboard. Well, if you put a billboard up on the freeway, everybody that's driving by is going to see that message, even the people that aren't really looking for what you do. So you're paying to be in front of everybody. Well, if you take that concept and apply it to your website, a landing page would focus only on a specific service or product that you want to offer combined with a location where you want to be found or a particular audience that you want to appeal to. The quality and quantity of landing pages added to a website is what consistently drives new front page placement. So we'll come in and add anywhere from 40 pages of new content to 4,000, depends on the size of the job and the objectives of the business and how competitive their particular market is. But it's that rigorous sort of heavy lifting approach that has worked consistently for over 11,000 clients, over 43,000 websites. The one thing they have in common is every single one of them have achieved multiple new front page placements within the first 90 days after we implement this approach, 100% of the time. And because we've had that track record of success, that gives us the flexibility to do things like not require any sort of contract. We earn your business every 30 days. And we have an exceptionally high retention rate because it works and it delivers results. So, so that's sort of a unique thing that we're able to do. We also publish our pricing on our website. I mean, very few companies will do that because, they don't want to, kind of set a stake in the ground if they can make more money from a particular client than another, I guess. I don't know, but we're very transparent. We put all of our pricing out there so our clients know exactly what they're getting and they know exactly what the bill is going to be. There's never any sort of surprise. But the big thing that this allows us to do is it gives us the flexibility to offer this guarantee. So our guarantee is if we don't achieve multiple new front page placements within the first 90 days, we give you a complete refund. Well, the good news for us is we've never had to give a refund because it works every single time. So, it's the rigor, it's the quality of the landing pages that we build. It's the technical aspect to make sure you're meeting 100% of Google's criteria. All of those things combined have consistently resulted in just outstanding performance for our clients. And typically, we'll drive anywhere from 400 to 500% increases in traffic to a given website for about 1/3 or less than what they may be spending on a Google pay-per-click advertising campaign. So not only does it drive a higher quality visitor, somebody that's actively looking for what that company does at the time that they need them, so they're sort of self-qualified, they tend to stay on the website longer. They tend to have larger purchase values, right? Especially if it's an online sort of e-commerce website, they tend to have significantly larger purchases. They tend to be more satisfied clients because they've done their research ahead of time and they've found you on that front page. They've checked out your website. They've checked out the reviews for your business. And I tell you, reviews are critically important these days. Another statistic for you, 83% of consumers will trust an online review as much as a recommendation from a friend or a family member.
Wow.
Wow, exactly.
That is crazy. I mean, it's good, I think, or
No,
is it?
it is good. Well, it's interesting because there's sort of a proliferation of review sites, whether it's a review on Google, whether it's a review that somebody left on Facebook or Yelp or Nextdoor. I mean, there's so many different, avenues for people to leave reviews. 5-star reviews are fantastic. You want to point to the 5-star reviews because that adds a ton of credibility that you know what you're doing, your business delivers results. Unfortunately, people leave bad reviews. Sometimes people have a bad experience, or sometimes people just, want to leave a bad review, whether it's warranted or not. We can help with that as well. I mean, with a service we call reputation management, we can't get rid of that review. Nobody can get rid of that negative review, but we can push it to the second or third page by adding so much positive information to your website in the form of landing pages, blog posts, articles, you name it, that it moves to the second or third page.
Very
Well,
clever.
it,
Very clever.
yeah, it's just it's using the tool. I mean, it's very ethical, above board. I mean, we're just adding positive content to counterbalance the negative, so the negative just moves out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, the review aspect is super important. So you had asked the question about our team, how long we've been doing this. Well,
Yes. And
so
and and by the way, we have 5 minutes left.
Oh wow, time flies.
Well, you love to talk, which is
Oh, ain't
great.
that the truth?
You make my
Oh,
job very
so
easy.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, I bet you haven't.
Well, so I actually partnered with a technology company that was one of the pioneers in the search engine optimization industry, and they started back in 1998, which is 2 years before Google even existed, right? So they've been perfecting this methodology, this process for almost 23 years now, and so when I started my digital marketing agency right at a year ago, I partnered with this firm, so we worked together, and I used their methodology, and it's proven to be 100% successful for all of our clients. We've got a fairly small team. We're based in Texas, in North Texas, a little city called Arlington. If you're a sports fan and you follow the Dallas Cowboys or the Texas Rangers, they're within spitting distance of my office. So, but we have the ability to leverage all kinds of companies, contractors, people that are experts in the industry. But one of the things that we do, and I'm actually quite proud of this, especially when it comes to content development, we only use resources in the US. And I think that's important because if you're writing content, I talked about that local SEO where people are going to go 5 miles from where they are well, if you're that business and you're trying to reach that consumer or that other, if you're B2B, if they start seeing content on your website that it looks like it's been put through Google Translate, or the grammar doesn't seem to flow, or the word choice is a little weird, it's not using the vernacular of that, part of the country, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's a big detractor on that company's brand image. So we steer clear of that. We only use either native English or native Spanish language content writers. Of course, in Texas, we have a large Spanish market as well, as we do in many parts of the country. But eventually we're going to go into French to serve the Canadian market. But for the most part, it's local and primary language. So yeah.
You know, I have to tell you, we could talk for hours and hours. You're very interesting.
Well, thank you.
Do you have For all your statistics, do you have like a lab, or is everything done with computers? I mean, how do you do what you do when you say you have a small team? I'm thinking that you're like a mad scientist watching all these algorithms all in these
That's because
screens.
that's because of the mustache and the crazy hair. It's the mad scientist thing. So no, it's it, it's really not that complicated to get after this. So we've got tools that we use, especially when we go and inspect a website on the technical SEO to see how much of Google's criteria it's meeting. So we've got tools that we've developed and our partners have developed that we leverage. A lot of information, like companies that are using pay-per-click advertising, how much they're spending, what keywords they're focused on in their ads, it's publicly available, right? I mean, Google publishes that information. So it's not difficult to get after the data that you need to come in and make a positive impact with the business. Some of my favorite stories are clients of mine that told me an example. I've got a local day spa, a fairly small business, but booming, growing, in spite of this year and the challenges that they've had with being locked down for a couple months. They've had to hire more staff on their front desk to answer the phone calls that are coming in from the increased traffic to their website. They've been overwhelmed with demand coming in because of the work we've done. That's a great problem in my book.
Th- that is fabulous. Well, we could talk for hours, and our 30 minutes has gone by very quick. As you said, you could talk for days, and it's great. So, Brig Serman from Advanced Integrated Marketing, President and CEO. How can people find you? What is your website?
So my website is www-aim. Sorry, let me start that again. It's not a dash. www.aim-tex.com. They can reach us through email at info@aim-tex.com.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Brig Serman, thank you so much for joining us for
Thank
another
you.
edition of Dead Air Live, the longest live running TV show in America, and Somerville Connects. Bye for now, folks.
All right. Thanks, JoJo.
Thank you. Somerville Connects. Somerville Connects.